Hello and welcome to Haman Nature. I am Adam Haman. That is Tyrone, the Porcupine Hobo. How in the world are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm feeling really good because I got a new shirt that I'm wearing that feels real good, and I'm also excited because Adam, you and Bob Murphy for the crossover episodes that you guys are doing just picked up your first sponsor. So we're close to making some money, and the cool thing is we this sponsor will also help us to create our own online store where this company called the Swan Brothers, they make like logoed merchandise where one day, folks, you can maybe buy an awesome shirt like the one I'm wearing that looks something like this.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. For you poor fools who are only listening to the audio, Tyrone just demonstrated a Haman Nature logoed shirt that is just gorgeous.
You like that, Adam?
I love that.
All right, well, yours is in the mail.
And since you mentioned it, go to the Swan Brothers /cross if you're interested in seeing what they can do. They do it all. They set up an online store for you, help you fundraise if that's what you're into. Their products are amazing. Most companies who do this are really bad at customer service for some reason. They're late. You won't get your, like if you're doing a promotion or you want a bunch of swag and merch gear for a holiday party or something, a lot of companies you'll get it like the day before or something. The Swan Brothers isn't like that. They are very, very good at what they do, and you would be surprised at how far advertising on merch goes. There's a reason all those dentists put their name on that pen you see in the office or whatever it is. That stuff really works. So get your brand, get your logo out on stuff. It boosts employee morale, and it really does drive sales, and you will love it.
Now we need to pick up like a vodka or like a Bloody Mary mix sponsor, because that's what I'm drinking right now, Adam. Because as you know, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but I can't watch the new Star Treks, man. They're awful. They've ruined. They've destroyed it. It drives me to drink. And in fact, it reminded me of an episode recently by the channel The Critical Drinker, which I love, that you recently referenced in one of your articles, lamenting the state of modern film and storytelling and shows, and just how it's like it drives you to drink how bad things are getting as far as storytelling goes. So rather than just lament in the dark corner of my house, wallowing away and drowning my sorrows in a tasty beverage, I thought we could talk about dedicate an episode to your articles. So you actually wrote two articles that are related. The first one was called "We Need Strong Heroes, but these days there are too many counterfeits," and in that you link to another video which we'll talk about as well, and play some clips from that, and then you did a follow-up piece article related to that called "Modern Movies Are Insipid, Pablum, and I Think I Finally Know Why." And in that article, you referenced this Critical Drinker video that we're going to talk about. So it's an interesting topic. You and I have done several episodes of talking about movies and culture and things like that. And I even did like a writing tips series for people who are looking to become writers, because I think both you and I lament sort of the bad state of storytelling, bad dialogue, bad plot, terrible characters these days. Just all seems to have been ruined in the last couple of decades, really, right? So that's kind of the theme for this episode. So why don't you take it away? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, it's almost a trope. Today's movies, they just suck. People have probably been saying it for generations, but gosh darn it, my generation means it. There's something terrible that's been going on in a lot of aspects of storytelling and character development. And in this episode, I just want to focus on one that's near and dear to my heart, which is how power, how strength is depicted in fiction, particularly in film. Because boy, has it changed.
And you know what, Adam? Hold that thought. But before I forget to say this, folks, if you want to read those articles that Adam writes, along with a lot of other hundreds of articles he's written on all kinds of topics, you want to check out our Substack. You can go to hamannature.com or hamannature.substack.com. And while you're there, I'm just saying, you can subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. And if you feel like it and you want to buy me another drink, because I can't stand the world we live in anymore, you can become a paid subscriber and get bonus content. So there, blah. Okay, advertisement over. All right, Adam, please continue with your thought.
Yeah, you heard it here first. We'll link to those articles in the show notes for this video. And yeah, please head to hamannature.substack.com. The newsletters are free, but if you want to save poor Tyrone's life before he drinks himself to death, maybe consider becoming a paid subscriber. So yeah, particularly how strength is portrayed in movies has just become shallow and insipid, and where it used to be a thing that described quote unquote the hero's journey, where they start out as weak and ineffectual, and then they grow, and then they learn, they develop a skill, they become effectual, and then come back and save the village or whatever. Instead of that, you just get people that are representing power and strength as just being sort of obnoxious and snarky, and they can snap their fingers and a battleship, explodes or something. It's truly wretched. And we're going to delve into some examples. But first I want to play a little clip from this video by a guy called Padda. I think that's what his YouTube channel is. And he's describing, he's upset about how strength used to be portrayed in movies as one way, and now we're seeing something that's like a counterfeit. And so people are being taught all the wrong values without recognizing it. And this little snippet will show you exactly what he's talking about.
I've grown quite worried about the trajectory of what humans perceive as strength, not only in entertainment media, but even in influencers and perceived role models. This is a steady decline that has been gradually moving towards shaping the very definition of strength. For me, this is actually quite a fascinating topic because of how blind a lot of people are to what is actually happening, almost as though they know the counterfeit better than the genuine. What do I mean by this? There is an interesting phenomenon called perceptual expertise that I'll use as an illustration. Anyone who handles cash on a constant basis, especially in a profession, gain an incredible ability to easily identify counterfeits. Now, something I find insane about this phenomenon is that it isn't actually taught. It is grown through exposure. Bank tellers and cashiers handle genuine banknotes all day. This constant, repeated exposure allows them to develop an intuitive sense of what feels right. The texture, color, weight, print clarity, and even embedded features of real currency. Over time, they build this mental prototype or baseline of what authentic notes look like. So when a counterfeit does come along, it stands out. Not necessarily because the cashier knows exactly what's wrong, but because it doesn't match the baseline they've naturally internalized. Their brain subconsciously flags it as unfamiliar or off. Now, you could probably see where I'm going with this. I believe that a lot of modern writers and influencers are more exposed to a counterfeit strength than they are to actual genuine strength. So to them, genuine strength is foreign, and they probably even see it as weakness. Unfortunately, it also seems like this is slowly becoming the norm.
So I like the way he framed that. And he's right. Most of the knowledge that we have that's really important isn't taught to us. Bank tellers aren't taught to recognize, nowadays we have that pen, to tell whether a counterfeit bill is a counterfeit bill. But people who deal with money every day, it's kind of a lost art because everything's digital now. But yeah, you can feel the thing in your hands is wrong when it comes out counterfeit. And if in the old days when you used to deal with coins, you could just drop it on the table and it would just sound different if it wasn't the correct metallic content. And I think we're getting something a whole lot like that in modern movies, where strength, particularly, it doesn't have to be male strength, but that's it. I'm a guy, so that's kind of the way I think about these things. It's being portrayed all wrong. You're getting all the wrong examples. There is an example that you'll see out there, which is a female version of what I'm talking about, and that's the difference between the animated story Mulan and the live action remake that they did.
Okay.
And the animated one, from a while ago, I forget, 90s maybe.
Yeah.
This little girl wants to join the military and save her country, but they won't let her because she's a girl. So she runs off and pretends that she's a boy and joins the army and gets trained up and becomes a great hero. But in that version, she actually is pathetic and weak when she first rolls into their version of boot camp, and she gets her nose stuck in the dirt by the drill instructor, and she has to learn how to become a capable warrior using her own select set of skills and advantages and intelligence. And that's a hero's journey, a growth arc. You turn yourself into something formidable through the exercise of discipline and character and thought. You can't just will it into existence. But in the live action remake from a few years ago, it's the exact same prelude. She quits and wants to join the army, but they don't want to take her in because she's a girl. But then they do take her in. Why? Because she's like some magic warrior, just right out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pathetic. What kind of lesson are we teaching people, that they can just pretend to be awesome and powerful, and then they all of a sudden will be? So anyway, that's one example, and then we're going to play a couple of others from. Like you, Tyrone, I love the YouTube channel of the Critical Drinker.
Yeah. Let me just go back to that Mulan one, because that's a really good example of where woke has really, call it woke, political correctness, whatever you want to label it as. It's this idea, especially as it relates to female characters. It's the woke ideology is that, men have power over women. So there's an imbalance there. There's an inequality. There's an oppressor versus an oppressed relationship. And the woke ideology is something akin to this. It's like, no. Women are just as good as men, right? They can do whatever men can do. They're just as intelligent. They're just as physically gifted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how that is translated into modern movies, and you referenced this one in your article, the Marvel, Captain Marvel, right, character. She never has to learn anything, especially not from a man, right? She just comes out of the box, all powerful, all knowing. Like she doesn't have to learn anything. She doesn't have to train anything, because if she did have to learn something, that would make her less than, I guess, right? So the ideology of this feminist or woke or whatever you want to call it takes the extreme viewpoint that, nope, you don't have to learn anything. They're just magically gifted out of the box. And so in the movie Mulan, she has magical powers. She just come from her inner self or something, right? Versus the hero's journey. And it's called the hero's journey for a reason, because the hero has to learn how to be a hero. He doesn't start as a hero. He ends as a hero. But everything has been flipped around where they just start as heroes. Well, then what's the story? There's no story.
Yeah, or the story you're telling is pathological. There are a whole lot of superhero stories. I mean, the first one I saw was maybe Firestarter, where this little girl just happens to be pyrokinetic. I guess she's telekinetic too. And what activates her power is that she gets really upset.
Right.
So she gets really emotional, and then she can impact the world through just will. And there have been, again, dozens and dozens and dozens of similar stories where somebody just has powers, and how are they manifest? By becoming really upset. That is a horrible lesson to teach young people, that
100%.
the way to affect change in the world is just to scream and yell and rage, and then somehow your the sheer
You
power of your
manifest
personality will manifest. Yeah, exactly.
into the universe somehow, magically, right?
And it's not just women, and there's male versions of this too.
Of course.
But it completely truncates what it is to be a hero, to go on that journey, to build yourself up into something who can manifest positively in the world. And it's just a crying shame that we've truncated this.
That's right. Heroes are supposed to be something we look up to as models for our own lives, because that's reality. Everyone starts off as a child that knows nothing and has to learn sort of to become, if you will, the heroes of their own lives. And you need role models to show how you do that. But if there's no struggle, if there's no learning, if you're just out of the box a superhero, that's not a role model that you can mimic in real life, because that's not possible. Even Superman had to learn how to fly. Even Superman had to learn how to use his strength in ways to accomplish goals, right? Yeah, he was born strong, but it doesn't mean he knows how to use his strength, right? So if you take away the hero's journey, all that you're left with is, let's go beat some people up. It's just smash and bang, boom, bam, and that's the story? Just fighting?
Along those lines, we're also seeing the concept of strong characters simply being portrayed in the physical super duper things they can do. Where we used to get stories where strength didn't have anything to do with violence. I reference Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't see characters like that portrayed anymore. You know, the specific aspect of his character is he wouldn't raise a hand in violence, but every time he was on stage interacting with other people, he brought a character, a quiet, stoic, I know what's right and I'm going to stand up for it, reserve that used to be a big, big, big part of all strength in all people, but mostly males. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my perverted lens, but that's just my version of a hero, is somebody who stands tall. I remember there's a scene in that movie that just knocked my socks off when I first saw it. His client is being transported back to the jail, and a mob is going to come lynch him, this guy who's been falsely accused. And so he hears about it, and he says, I'll be right there. I'm going to go defend him. And so he runs to the closet and, starts looking for stuff. You think he's going to grab down a shotgun or something, but he doesn't. He pulls down a standing reading lamp. And he takes that and a book to the front of the jail, finds an outlet, who knows where, but plugs it in. And so he's sitting there reading a book with this reading light on when the mob shows up with pistols and shotguns. And when I first saw it, I'm like, what's he going to do? Beat those people to death with that lamp? But no, the point was, what he's going to do is go there, stand up, and say right from wrong, use his speech, and hopefully it'll work out. And in the movie, it turned out his daughter kind of saved him, because she ran out there and broke the hard hearts of one of the men in the crowd. Anyway, but the point being, we used to get all sorts of examples of strength that didn't have anything to do with the power cosmic and whatever Miss Marvel represents, which is just awful. And I'm sure there are indie movies that do something like this, and maybe I'm just missing them. But that used to be a big part of what strength was in adulthood and power in stories. And we're just not getting that these days.
So I think what the postmodernists have done, really this is sort of a postmodernist movement in a lot of ways. What you're talking about is strength of character, right? Strength of moral conviction, strength of personality, if you will. And they're replacing strength of character because like morality, that's all meaningless. Character. So they replace strength of character with physical strength. as a substitute, and it's just not.
It's just not.
You know, yes, we have physical bodies, and we can manifest strength through our actions, but the actions are only a manifestation of our inner strength. And so when you remove the inner strength, all you're left with is robots. I mean, really. I mean, they take away all the humanity from these characters, really, and either reduce them to narcissistic, godlike creatures that you can't relate to as a human being, or imbecilic, whiny children.
Well, you just hit the nail right on the head, and that we're about to play a bunch of scenes from The Critical Drinker. But even though they have the power to smash planets, what you're really talking about are these childish characters. And he says, you know, one of the reasons why movies suck, he's got a whole series on it, but one of them that we're going to play for him is they're written by children. And boy, is that true. He uses the old and the new versions of Star Trek to demonstrate what he's talking about, which is great because that show, these characters, this universe has been written about and made movies and TV shows from since the 60s. Yeah. And so since they're still doing it, it provides a beautiful canvas with which to see the difference between character development and storytelling. So I've got 3 scenes in mind I want to play, the difference between the old and the new. So the first one here is Captain Kirk ruminating on getting old. It's one of the major themes of the entirety of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, undercurrent of that whole entire film. And so let's see what the Critical Drinker has to say about the disparity.
First up, let's take a look at The Wrath of Khan from 1982, which is generally regarded as the best Star Trek movie ever made. The basic story is that an aging Admiral Kirk is given command of the Enterprise again when an old enemy hijacks a Federation starship and uses it to get his hands on a doomsday weapon that can destroy entire planets. Along the way, he also intends to dish out a bit of good old-fashioned payback on Kirk as revenge for leaving him stranded on a barren planet decades earlier. There's a lot going on here in terms of character development, but the central story arc for Kirk is his struggle with getting older. The movie opens up on his 50th birthday, and it's clear he's not exactly thrilled about that fact. He's very much a middle-aged man now, stuck in an unrewarding desk job and facing up to the realization that his best days may be behind him. McCoy even gives him a pair of reading glasses as a birthday gift because he's too proud to admit that his eyesight isn't what it used to be. Overall, it's a pretty universal concept that most people can relate to and empathise with. I mean, how many of us are trapped in some boring office job we don't enjoy, wishing we could live a life of adventure and endless possibilities? How many of us are getting older and realising we can't do the things we used to do, and that other, younger people are slowly coming up to replace us? Deep down, we all know it's going to happen sooner or later, even if we'd rather not think about it. Now consider a similar scene that Star Trek Beyond from 2016 rips off. Pays tribute to. It's the same basic setup of Kirk and his friend McCoy celebrating his birthday over a quiet drink, and a subdued Kirk reflecting unhappily on where he's at in life. The difference here though is that this version of Kirk is 36 years old, and he's in command of a starship out exploring the galaxy. He's literally in the prime of his life, doing the things he enjoys most. He should be loving every single minute of it, but because the movie wants to set him up as a reluctant hero who's thinking about moving on to new things, the best it can come up with is to project the middle-aged angst of Wrath of Khan onto a character who's at a completely different stage in life. It doesn't ring true in the slightest because it's trying to force a situation that can't happen organically.
So, I don't know about you, Tyrone, but I see a pretty big difference there. What in the world is this 30-something doing complaining about how his... You don't know what the original Kirk is talking about here, kid.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I got to do it. Khan!
It's obligatory. You have to. It's the law.
Actually, it was like a couple of years ago. It was God, how old is this movie? It was some sort of anniversary, right? So they put it back in theaters. Yeah. I love going to see these ones. And it still stands up. It's still one of my favorite movies of all time. Seriously. But yeah, it's that quiet, introspective. It's almost stoic in a way, right?
And it's
that
real.
Really, yeah. It's that real inner strength that we're talking about, but also showing one's humanity. And again, what I just said before we played the clip, these new versions of these heroes are taking out the humanity of the characters, which is a real shame. And it just reminds me, you're lamenting. What's that?
Sorry to interrupt, but as you're saying it, they're stripping stuff out for the new audience. I mean, the critical drinker even talks about it. Like, in order to make money, you've got to appeal to these vapid young minds or something. And it really is, it's like the difference between a good old classical archetypal book and a TikTok video. You're going to get something to learn, something of substance from one, and what in the world is happening with the other. That's just occupying your time. It's all the essence is sucked out of the thing.
Right. It just reminds. So he also makes the point, which I completely agree with. It's this new generation, the millennial generation of writers that they were the helicopter kids, right? Their parents made them wear helmets and protected them from everything, and they can never go play in the park by themselves. I mean, I don't blame them. I wouldn't let my kids do that either in today's world, but they've been coddled their whole lives. They've never had to face real adversity, So it's this, that fourth turning idea, strong, hard times make strong people, whatever, right? So we're now like in the weak people time. So we're getting weak movies. So I really think this is a generational aspect. Star Trek was written by people that were, saw the Great Depression and World War II and that generation, right? Because that started to come out in the 60s, right? So you had people that went through real hard times, that knew what it was to suffer adversity and to fight through it and to overcome real challenges,
and to do so as adults.
Right.
To take it back to what our first video clip was from the guy who's talking about counterfeit strength. The next clip that we're going to play shows what real strength is from an adult's perspective, as opposed to what J.J. Abrams and company are trying to dish out, and it's really beautiful. It's about being in control of yourself, and so if you're ready, let's go ahead and play that disparity.
Now consider the ending for Wrath of Khan. With his ship crippled and most of his crew dead, Khan triggers a doomsday device in a last-ditch attempt to take his enemy down with him. The desperate situation forces Spock to sacrifice himself to repair the Enterprise's warp core, allowing them to escape the blast at the cost of his own life. Kirk's forced to watch his best friend die in front of his eyes, unable to help him, and it's interesting to watch his reaction as the realization sinks in. He doesn't scream or cry out or lose control, he just kinda slumps to the ground, devastated and shocked as the camera slowly pans away. And when it's time to lay his friend to rest, he delivers the eulogy with stiff but stoic composure, only wavering once at the very ends.
Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human.
Why? Because he's a grown-ass man and he's the captain of a starship. He's expected to lead by example and hold himself together, whatever his personal feelings, because that's how professional officers conduct themselves. And that little moment when his composure slips becomes all the more poignant, because you know how hard he's trying to hide it. Now let's consider how this same scene plays out in Star Trek Into Darkness. Yeah, I think you begin to see the difference here. Not only does Kirk's death happen in the midst of a ridiculous action scene with starships crashing into cities, buildings getting flattened, and people dying by the tens of thousands, thus giving the audience no time to process it before it's swiftly undone with a bit of cheap Deus Ex Trifica. But it's also very clear that the characters in whatever passes for modern Star Trek very much wear their hearts on their sleeves, running around like frantic lunatics in emergencies, openly discussing personal relationships in front of superior officers, and responding with big emotional outbursts in high-stress situations. It's quite a contrast from the more mature and restrained characterizations from the earlier movies.
Jesus, Adam, I gotta drink more. What are they doing to my Star Trek?
Yeah, brother, I feel your pain. Watching scenes like that back to back, the contradistinction, it really makes me weep for what they've done to our boys. We used to have stories of adults reacting to real painful situations, and if you're learning how to be a person, a man, that's just really nice to see. He doesn't just completely lose his composure. He recognizes the situation. He's obviously wrecked, but he does it in not a lunatic fashion, the old version. And it's so poignant. Just as we're watching the clip now, seeing him read the eulogy for his friend as he's about to shoot him out of the airlock in a photon torpedo, it brings tears to my eyes to this day because it's something real. It's something that has all the power, all the essence of a real person going through a thing, and you see that. You just don't see that in the modern movies.
And before we get accused of being sexist and like, oh, it's got to be a male-oriented thing. I mean, we started with Mulan, okay, first of all. But second, take a movie like Alien.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver's character, Ripley, right? I mean, you want to talk about a heroic, strong woman. It's not because she picks up a gun to fight an alien. It's because she learns how to survive and goes through adversity and then comes out at the end victorious and heroic because she found the strength within herself to do these things. And yeah, it's couched in a horror action movie, but that's not really the core of the character. That's not really the core of the movie. The core of the movie is her character, right? And her overcoming the challenge of, in this case, fighting an alien, but whatever,
And, that's such a great example. It's, at least the first 3 of those movies in that series were just amazing. And yeah, she's not great because she's got a whole bunch of guns and muscles. She's great because even in that original movie, she was the only one who saw correctly what was going on and what the true danger was. And I don't believe she had a weapon throughout that whole movie except the button on an airlock, release hatch button.
Yeah, I mean, she figured out the alien's weaknesses, how to fight it, combat it, how to survive. She showed grit, but humanity as well. I mean, it's a top 10 movie of all time.
Yeah, the lessons we're talking about, Tyrone and I are both males of the species, so that's our lens. But female strength and power and resilience is being stripped out too. It's being replaced by this foe just as good as the men version.
But I mean, like, one of my favorite books is Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein, right? And many female lead characters in that book, right? Or Dagny Taggart in Atlas Shrugged,
there you
or
go.
something like that, right? So these principles are universal among our species. It's not about male, female. It's just, I just want to make that point out there. It's like they're destroying all the good characters, regardless of gender. But I actually think they're doing it worse to women. I think they're doing it worse to female characters because that Captain Marvel is an abomination.
They're doing it worse to women because they're making it seem, you've seen all these millions of TV shows and movies where some 110-pound woman is just taking out with ease squadrons of highly trained army, people. It's just ridiculous. And
what kind of role model is that?
A woman can exert just as much strength of character and power and competence and capability as a man, but not in the arena of physical violence, hand-to-hand combat, for crying out loud.
How about this one? Take Gone with the Wind. I mean, the lead female character, she fights to keep her, home and land and whatever. I mean, talk about a strong character.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even know what that would look like today. Like, they couldn't even write that today,
And to an extent, maybe it's just the economics of the situation. Like, maybe the TikTok generation doesn't want to see anything except these super heroic things. And then, in which case, what are you going to do? I don't want a movie that has powerful speeches and subtle demonstrations of poignancy and character. No,
it may be the younger generation just can't relate to it because, again, they're all helicopter kids that never had to bump their knees while riding a bike because their parents patted them up or something. I don't know.
Patted him up. Slow down, Tyrone.
I don't know what that means. But, you know, they put him in a bubble. I don't know.
I want to stick with the Star Trek theme in this
Right.
in this next video, because again, it's showing that we're not showing strength and competence in the same way as we used to. And boy, is it on display right here.
I have a feeling I better pour myself another drink before.
You're gonna need to know. Yes, exactly. It's about. Well, we'll let the critical drinker tell you what it's all about.
As another example, let's consider how characters handle interpersonal conflict. Like in this scene from Star Trek The Undiscovered Country, where it's revealed that due to a major industrial disaster, the Klingon Empire is on the verge of collapse, and is now making peace overtures towards the Federation. Naturally, this causes quite the difference of opinion about how to handle the situation, with the more hardline officers seeing this as a chance to eliminate their most dangerous enemies once and for all. The more forward-thinking elements, on the other hand, want to negotiate an honourable peace rather than push their opponents into a corner and risk a destructive military conflict. Both perspectives have merit, and the script is smart enough to let them have their say before revealing that Kirk has been personally chosen by Spock to lead the diplomatic initiative. Naturally, he's not happy about being railroaded into a mission like this, partly because of his professional mistrust of the Klingons, partly because he's an aging commander who fears the rapidly changing world around him, but also because he has a very personal reason to hate them.
David?
David is dead.
All of these elements combine together to create a strong and very understandable emotional reaction. You can see how fucking angry he is with his friend, the way he stands at the opposite end of the table, keeping a safe distance between them. At first it starts with cold accusations, but when Spock tries to argue his case rationally, the real emotions start to come through.
Don't believe them. Don't trust them.
Until at last it all becomes too much and Kirk finally shows his true colours.
They're dying. Let them die.
It's a smart, well-written scene that demonstrates the changing dynamics between the two friends and actually paints Kirk in a pretty unflattering light without completely destroying him as a character. He's an old, bigoted, reactionary officer from a different era, afraid of change, still licking old wounds, and unable to see past his own prejudices. And yet, you absolutely understand why he feels this way. Just like the debate during the briefing earlier, neither side is portrayed as strictly right or wrong, they're just different perspectives, born from different experiences, and both are definitely worth listening to. But what's most important to note here is how the two men actually conduct themselves. They're controlled, rational, and measured, arguing their points effectively and not simply shouting over each other. Yeah, Kirk's definitely got an emotional stake in this, which quickly comes through as Spock presses him, but even then he manages to keep himself mostly under control. Why? Because that's how grown fucking men deal with things. Real men don't fly off the handle at the slightest provocation or start fighting and yelling at each other when they disagree, because losing control like that isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of deep weakness and insecurity. Weakness of character, weakness of self-control, and weakness of self-discipline. Now let's consider how Kirk and Spock resolve their differences in the new version of Star Trek. For fuck's sake.
Tyrone, I love that clip so much because
Yeah.
it shows, again, adults having a disagreement quietly as adults, not just screaming and throwing a temper tantrum. And you just don't see writing like that very often anymore. Not in big movies anyway.
And what's really beautiful about the Kirk, the Shatner version, is as he's saying the words, it's a struggle for him to say it.
Yeah.
You can almost feel internally he's fighting himself against it. And the way that's manifested in a physical form is when he says, then let him die, he has tears in his eyes. He's not happy about it. He's not,
He's almost turning white.
Yeah.
But as the critical drinker mentions, this is a character this is an archetype almost.
Yes.
A veteran of brutal wars that needed to be fought who just can't get over.
Yep.
It's not a direct analogy, but the scene reminds me of another great movie, Crimson Tide, Gene Hackman and
Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington, yeah, great cast. And it's a similar thing to in all of Shatner's, since Wrath of Khan on, he's dealing with becoming an old guy in a new universe. And you see that on this sub where, there's good arguments to be made for everything the old captain, represented by Gene Hackman, is playing. That argument I can make all day long. Yep. And equally valid is the argument that happened to be right, played by Denzel Washington. And it's not just a young versus old. It's a change in philosophy. And yeah, there's something, that story just needs to be told and told well. And thank goodness it is in some quarters. But we're not getting it from the modern Star Treks.
It's such an important point that you just said there, and it's referenced in the clips as well, that it's important to portray both sides of an argument as being valid.
Yes.
Like you could be swayed either way.
Yes.
To go.
Life is messy. You will have competing interests that are both valid, and it is not easy to figure out which needs to be applied.
It takes a hero to wade through the mess and find the right path, right? The path to victory,
and you show
or the good outcome or whatever.
You show the necessity for two heroic aspects. One is the forethought to consider competing alternatives, to give them their due. Right. And the next one is to pick one and follow through, because that, in the real world, that is what has to happen from time to time. You just pick one, and then you follow through, and hope that you were right. And I just love it in those old versions. I hate it in the new. And the final clip I have to play, again from Star Trek, again from the Critical Drinkers, shows there used to be something that you could learn watching TV and movies and reading books about what it's like to be in an organizational structure and to be the leader or a leader in that structure. And that used to be a set of virtues that really could take you far if you embodied them. And what they're giving us now, oh my God, is not that. Let's roll the clip.
The last example I want to give you is how the chain of command operates in different eras of Star Trek. In the episode Gambit from Star Trek The Next Generation, the captain and first officer of the Enterprise are both out of action, leaving Data to take command of the ship and Worf to act as his first officer. It's a change of role for both men, and unfortunately Worf doesn't take too well to this, openly questioning his decisions in front of the bridge crew.
Finally.
This prompts Data to summon him to his ready room for a good old-fashioned ass-kicking. Like my previous examples, the great thing about this scene is how restrained and understated these two characters are. They don't yell at each other or come to blows because they don't need to. Data calmly but firmly explains that Worf was wrong to question him in front of the crew.
You continually question my orders in front of the crew. I do not believe this is appropriate behavior.
Worf offers a justification for his behavior.
Is it not my duty to offer you alternatives?
And Data lets him know that shit isn't gonna fly with him.
But once I have made a decision, it is your job to carry it out, regardless of how you may personally feel.
And guess what? Worf recognizes that he was in the wrong, apologizes for it, and the two men go back to work with no hard feelings.
If you will overlook this incident, I would like to continue to consider you my friend.
I would like that as well.
Holy shit, imagine two people dealing with interpersonal conflict like calm, adult professionals. Whoever wrote the dialogue for this scene deserves a fucking medal. It's an absolute masterclass in the subtle enforcement of command and authority, mixed in with the conflict between two friends having to adjust to a sudden change of roles. Without even having to raise his voice or resort to personal attacks, Data is able to perfectly explain the mutually supportive relationship between a captain and his first officer, and make it clear that he expects that same level of support from Worf. Disrespect will not be tolerated. And as a contrast to that, consider how the chain of command operates on a show like Star Trek Discovery.
Now you get off my ass so we can get back to work? The shit would hit the fan.
Well done, number one.
Well, it's freaking amazing.
Excuse me? Freaking amazing.
Evolution's a fickle bitch, am I right? I'm going, get off my ass!
Sir, get off my ass, sir!
I love how these people are able to just say and do whatever the fuck they want with zero repercussions, casually backchatting their commanding officers, and generally acting like immature morons. Seriously, the level of discipline and professionalism here is about the same as a fucking liberal arts college. They're like teenagers that have suddenly been put in command of a starship with no training or preparation. They're impulsive, hyperactive, emotionally unstable, unprofessional, and generally pretty incompetent. They're the absolute last people on earth you'd trust your life to, and unfortunately, they've become kind of the norm in modern film and TV.
Oh, jeez, Adam. What are you doing to me?
Yeah. What are young people going to watching Discovery learning about what it is to be in a hierarchical organization? That what's the point? Just scream and yell and shout and everything will all work out. I think all those starships would just explode right out of the starport, or what do you call them?
I can't wait to go to work on Monday and just tell my boss to F off. I mean,
that's what strong people do, right?
What the hell?
So I hope people are getting our point here. There's something truly awful about what we used to tell people about these character traits that are valuable, really important for you to internalize and exhibit out there in the real world. You make your life better, you make everybody else's life better, you make society better, because we've lost that, and instead the counterfeiters are switching it out with whatever that nonsense from these later versions of Star Trek is, and the latest version of Mulan, and all the rest of it, whatever Carol Danvers is in that Ms. Marvel thing. It's not good. Seek out older. I have a lot of friends who just watch older stuff now. You know,
Yeah.
they go back and watch stuff from the 90s, early 2000s.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But I will say, there are still some really great stuff out there. I mean, there in all art, I feel like most of it's going to be garbage, no matter what period you live in. I really feel like. So it just might be recency bias for us, or we just think things are getting worse because we're getting old and curmudgeonly or whatever. But I do want to point out there's still good stuff being made. The series that was recently done, The Last Kingdom. Did you see that? About it's a true, historically true event about Vikings and how they interacted with the early formation of the Kingdom of England in about 800 AD. Fantastic series. And you want to talk about an great character portrayal and a massive hero's journey. I mean, it's a 10 out of 10. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. And that just came out a few years ago. I would highly recommend if you haven't seen that. I think it's on Netflix.
You make a great point. We do have much greater volume of stuff.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's still great things being written and made. But the reason why it's still okay to be old man shouts at cloud here is that when the content volume was lower, the best movies had these, the biggest ones, the blockbusters of the day, had these character portrayals in them that were noble and good, and there's something you could learn. And with the exception of, I guess, I don't know, Oppenheimer, the big budget blockbusters just aren't good like that anymore, or much fewer of them.
One thing that we didn't really touch on here, but going back to your article and to that first video we were showing, is the rise of the anti-hero, right? And it's almost a reaction. It's almost an instinctual reaction by the writers in Hollywood or whatever. They realize that they're missing something with their hero characters because they've destroyed them. They don't know how to portray them. But an anti-hero allows them the freedom in a weird way to make heroic actions out of the bad guys. And so, like, I take a show like The Penguin that recently came out. Fantastic show. It's well written. It's well produced. It's well directed. It's fantastically acted. And it does have this hero's journey, but it's from the perspective of the Penguin, one of the arch villains in all of, the DC universe. And so the problem with that is if the anti-hero becomes your role model, if that's the only thing you have to look up to, then what is that really teaching us? The only way to be good is to be bad?
Yeah, I think defenders of this try and say, yeah, well, we're just showing authentic people, instead of these. In fact, let me give the anti-hero its due. I think there was a period of time when the heroes being told in the movies, certainly, were two-dimensional.
Yeah, they were cardboard.
I will come and save the day,
right,
and
right.
they weren't in any way real people, and so
not interesting, right?
So when I think the reference you'll hear most often is Han Solo. So when this lovable rogue comes in and shows, an anti-hero sort of a vibe, it's true that it's actually making a more real version of a character. You had something that was more two-dimensional. We're now making this three-dimensional.
Right.
And, nothing is more awesome than an anti-hero story like, Walter White in Breaking Bad.
Sure. There's
a way to do this well, but it's supposed to be the counterpunch. It's supposed to be the off-tempo beat. It's not supposed to be your noble archetype of what a hero is. It's supposed to be this broken thing.
It's also supposed to be tragic. It's supposed to have an element of tragedy.
Right.
To say, yeah, you can find the flower growing out of a pile of shit, but it's still a pile of shit. It's like you shouldn't aspire to be this. It's tragic what has happened. It's like Peter Keating in The Fountainhead. It's tragic what's happened to him. So it's a lesson to learn, kind of like not to be that, but it still can be beautiful art and great storytelling.
And it could be part of a subplot in a movie about, like it's never too late for redemption, that sort of a thing. It's never too late to make the right decision. Yeah. There's a sunk cost fallacy to people's characters. I think people think, I've just been this way for too long and I'm not going to change. No, you can always change. But yeah, that shouldn't be the beginning of your now you're a hero. That doesn't make any sense.
Now, that being said, you kind of conclude one of your articles by saying, okay, libertarians out there or people out there, this is our opportunity to write good art, to create good art, because I still feel like even the millennial helicopter generation or whatever that's been protected our whole life, there's something instinctual in us that recognizes the hero, that needs to be the hero, and we still have to overcome obstacles in our life. We still have to be the heroes of our lives.
Dude, we're still the same species.
Right.
I mean, that's what gives me hope. Culture is it's like Brett Weinstein says, our genome has offloaded evolution to the cultural layer because it's quicker and more powerful. And that leads us down wrong paths. See the Soviet Union and whatever TikTok is. But it also means it can quickly shift on a dime and adjust. And as you were just saying, the genome is still the same. We're still the same creatures. We still have to be heroic. That is how we handle adversity and challenge, no matter what our level of technology is. And so I hope that this wrong turn we've taken will correct itself quickly. It certainly can, even with helicopter kids. You're right.
Yep. Agreed. All right, folks. Well, be sure to go to HamanNature.com. Check out Adam's newsletter. Subscribe to the newsletter. Check out the articles. If you feel like it, become a paid member to see our bonus content. Otherwise, please, please, please like and subscribe. Ding, 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 ding to our channel. We're still in that slow growth phase. So every like and subscribe helps. And thanks so much for tuning in.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And if you do decide to become a paid supporting member, you very well might be the one who saves poor Tyrone's life. Think about that. Thank you, Tyrone. This was great, and we'll catch you next time on Haman Nature.
What a joke, man.
What
I
a
tried
fucking
that
joke.
Discovery show.
I couldn't get through it.
I couldn't get through the first fucking episode. I was like, this is a joke.